I wanted to welcome everyone to the Center for Online and Continuing Education's professional development session for today. And we have back again with us, we have such wonderful resources on this campus. And Michelle Shaw is joining us today as the director from the Student Accessibility Services, sharing another one of her amazing, fascinating, and extremely essential pieces of making our courses accessible for our students. So I'm going to turn it over to you now, Michelle. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Judy. Not a problem. I don't mind sharing because if people don't know how to do it, the only way to teach them is to do it with them. So that's the whole point of today's presentation. I'm going to show you how you can make accessible PDFs. And I'm going to share my PowerPoint, but I'm also going to be going back and forth just so you guys know. And we have it working this week, which is awesome. So as Judy said, my name is Michelle Shaw. I'm the Director for Student Accessibility Services. And if you don't know me by now, maybe reach out. We can always chat because I know there's some new faculty out there that I haven't met with yet. So the whole purpose of this presentation is just to kind of give you an overview. And I do mean it's an overview. I'm not going to do a super deep dive. We would need a few hours to do that, but I'm going to give you some tips and some shortcuts on how to do the accessible PDF. One of the biggest mistakes that we make is we scan a document as an image file. And when we do that, it makes that piece of information completely inaccessible to any student that's utilizing a screen reader, assistive technology, or any of our students that maybe English isn't their first language are using a screen reader as well sometimes to be able to read that information to help get them to understand the material. And so that's the one biggest thing is never scan a document as an image PDF file. That's a no-no. Just don't even try. That's the worst thing in the world that you can do. So when it comes to accessible documents, why is it important? The biggest thing is for equality and inclusion. So we want to make sure that all students have equal access to their pursuit in their education. And whether that's a student with a disability, a student that's coming from another country with another language, or it's a student that maybe is a full-time caregiver for a family member or children, we have to make sure that we give them that equal access. And so when it comes to accessible documents, we're looking at everything from Word, PowerPoint, spreadsheets, PDF, even HTML, looking on your websites and things like that. And so a lot of individuals, not just students registered with my office, use assistive technology. You may use it yourself and you don't even know it. But if you're listening to information on your phone rather than reading it and you're asking the phone to read it to you, or you're leaving a message, you're speaking into the phone for it to type for you, that's assistive technology. So I think at some point, all of us have used some form of assistive technology. So when we're looking at accessible PDFs, what we're looking at is there's 4 principles, and this comes from WCAG 2.1, which is basically it stands for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And this is worldwide, and they look at making sure like websites and documents within those websites are accessible for all individuals. And so those 4 principles, they call it POUR. It's perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So we're just trying to make sure that those key principles are being applied when we're uploading information onto the internet or in documents that we're sharing with individuals in your classes. And if you look on my PowerPoints, I give you a lot more information that you can read a little bit more. Like I said, if I had a 2-hour window, we could go into a lot more detail. But I just this is the principle that we base everything on for accessibility, comes from WCAG 2.1 and those 4 principles. So what is the difference between a regular PDF and an accessible PDF? So an accessible PDF is where individuals with disabilities are able to access that PDF and read it using their specific assistive technology. And so what we want to make sure is when that technology is reading that PDF, that it's reading it in a chronological order and not jumping around. That gets to be very confusing for an individual with a disability if the information starts off with the first paragraph, but maybe jumps over to the right and reads something else and then jumps back over to the left, but it's not following the order that it should be. And I know that might sound technical, and I'll show you what I mean when we get there. So what we call that is when we look at a PDF, we're looking at what we call ocular character recognition. So OCR, not the people that come and sometimes sue us. Ocular character recognition is what we utilize in our PDFs to make sure that they're accessible. And these tools are available in PDF if you're in the Adobe program. But I'm going to show you basic ways on how we can create an accessible PDF from the get-go rather than being retroactive and fixing it afterwards. So we just want to make sure that we have the correct accessible PDF when we're putting them, say, into our classes on Canvas. We want to make sure that they're accessible. So we've got 3 steps to create an accessible PDF. And you can actually do this with and without Adobe Acrobat on your computer, if you guys know that you have that capability in Word to do so. So the 3 steps are we create an accessible Word document first. And I did do a presentation on this earlier this year on how to create an accessible Word document. And with the files that I shared to give out to everybody today, I actually put a copy of the accessible Word step-by-step guide for you. So it's a refresher. So we create an accessible Word document, then we save it as a PDF within Word, and then we can check the accessibility with the screen reader. When you create an accessible Word document, this is what we have to do. So I'm going to bring up a Word document that I have. This is just one of the email messages I send out to one of my students throughout the semester to check in with them and make sure that they're doing what they need to do, with some friendly nags in there as well. So I created this in Word, and I'm going to show you there's one little crucial thing you can put on your Word and save it. So if you go into where we have the review tab, there is a thing that says check accessibility. So if you click on this, you can click on check accessibility, and it's going to tell you any errors that may be. But this one little box right here where it says keep accessibility checker running while you work, if you check that at all times when you're typing in Word, it's going to alert you when something isn't accessible. So it's really cool little feature to help you from the get-go create accessible documents. So you can see I have one warning, and I deliberately did this. So it's telling me hard to read text contrast. And so what that means is there's a very poor contrast between the white background and the color of the lettering. And so you can click on it, and it's going to take me right to what the problem is. And so it's a funny pinky red color, but it doesn't like it because it's too light of a contrast. And so if somebody that is with a reading disorder or a student that has a visual impairment may have difficulty be able to I can't even speak anymore, differentiate between that font and the page. It is going to be really difficult for them to read that information. So we want to make sure that it pops out a little bit more. So I can come in and I can change the color. And so what I've learned is don't just use red because it doesn't like just red. I go for more of a dark maroon color. So something like one of these. And I'm going to save it. So it's a little bit darker. So now it's telling me I have no accessibility issues found. So that's a good thing. I want to show you one other one. I'm going to check accessibility, and you'll see right away it says missing alternative text. And what this means is this Florida Atlantic University is an image file. It's not the words. So I can add a description or I can mark it as decorative. But I'm just going to put Florida Atlantic University. Okay, and I'm going to leave it at that. And so what that means is when that student is reading this document with a screen reader or any assistive technology, it's going to read that image as Florida Atlantic University, which is what we want them to do. So I wanted to show that one piece first for you.
And
Does
it
that-
it would have, most of us would not have, it wouldn't occur to us that that's an image rather than the words that we're
Yeah,
seeing.
because it's a logo. You know, some
Yeah.
people just type in logo, but I'm like, but if you type in logo, a logo of what? So I just put in what it says usually for the most part. And if it was irrelevant, like if it's just a line, you know, a fancy line partition, I will just put decorative. So now I know that my document that says Dear Students is good. What I can do is I can hit File and I can hit Save as a PDF. And what you want to make sure it's going to be going to where I want it to go, number one. And I want to have a title. The other thing you need to click on is Options. So I'm clicking on Options. And what we want to make sure is right here, we're converting the document information and we're enabling accessibility and reflow with tagged Adobe PDF. This has got to be tagged. If you don't have that checked off, it's not going to work. So this is the one big thing to make sure that you put that on there. And I also make sure that it has word headings to bookmarks as well. Because again, when it comes to the reading structure of your document, by clicking on that, it's going to help keep it in chronological order for you. So I'm going to click OK, and then I'm going to hit Save. And now
Thank
it's
you.
converting it to a PDF for me. So now we're in PDF, like, okay, do we know if it's accessible? So there's some fun features within this little document. If you click on View, there's two things I want to show you. The first one is Read Aloud. So Read Aloud is like assistive technology for you as you work. I use this a lot when I have to read something and I'm multitasking, which I know some people say is not good, but sometimes there's not enough hours in my day to do things, and that's my way around it. So that's
Perfect.
one way you can double check, but there's a second way to check. I'm going to go into View, and there's a Tools section. And in Tools, if you go all the way down, there's Accessibility. So we're going to hit Open. So over on this side, it is completely open. So I'm going to click on Full Check. So these are the ones that we need to check. So you can see Accessibility Permission Flag, document is tagged PDF, its structure provides a logical reading order, text language is specified, bookmarks are present for large documents, and the document has appropriate color contrast. When you're in the PDF, when it's been converted, it should have all of these automatically checked, but just in case, I just wanted to make sure you see that. And on the PowerPoint, I have a screenshot of it as well. So I'm going to click on Start Checking. So it runs a little report. And then on the side here, it comes up with the issues. So it's telling me I have 2 issues. And so one of them is image only PDF skipped. And when I checked on this, what this is, it's the HTML. I have a link to a web page. And for every single one of them, for some reason, it's telling me it's skipped. But when I read it with the read aloud, and I've also read this document using our read and write program, it reads it fine. I have no idea why this happens, but if for some reason it doesn't like the HTML links for the web pages. So what I'm going to just do on here is skip the rule because I know it works fine.
Okay.
The logical reading order, it always will give you this because it wants you to double check to make sure it's reading all of the information on the page. So using the read aloud program, I'm reading through to make sure that it is reading everything. And I can show you, if you would like, how that works. I'm going to go to read aloud and get it to read.
And it won't,
Oh yeah, I forget.
yeah, it won't read for us, but
Sorry.
but you hear it and know that it is reading
It's
correctly. And
reading
it will
all of
do
it.
that when we do it on our own computer.
Yeah, you should hear it reading everything.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the one thing. I don't know why it doesn't let you do that on the other end. So for me, this is correct. So what you could do is you can come in here and you can hit pass. And pass means you've manually checked it.
Okay.
Again, the title is the same thing. It's giving me an error message. So on this one, we need to put a title. So I'm going to put Dear Student. It doesn't have a title of the document within the document, and with PDF, you have to have the title within the document. So I'm going to hit OK. So all I did, let me cancel this and do it again so I can show you. All I did was to go Fix, get over, click on where it says Leave it as is. It doesn't like that. So I'm going to put the title, and the title is, oops, Dear Student. And then the next thing, it's the color contrast. So even though I did a manual check color contrast and it was fine in Word, in PDF, they use the full WCAG 2.1. And so for them, even that maroon red that I used is not good enough for them. So I know it's readable for a student with a disability. So you can leave it the color you want if you wish, or you can just change the color again. I just want it to be a different color because I want my students to understand not to expect a response within an hour, which is a lot of times what they think we should do, that they have to give us time because we're busy. So I'm going to hit pass. So I believe everything else on the page is good. And you can click on all of the links, and you can actually attach this document. You can save it so you can show that your information is accessible. I didn't have summary skipped. What is that one? So I'm going to hit skip on there because I'm not sure. What it is. The summary, I don't have a summary on my thing, so I'm going to hit good on that one. My lists are good, and my edits are good. So now it's telling me that I have a fully accessible PDF. And so I can hit close, and I'm all done. I have one fully accessible document. I have it saved as is as well, but you can always go back in and hit save again. So I'm going to save as, and I'm just going to put it back in. This is going to go on my documents there. So this is completely accessible. It would work with a screen reader for a student. So it's a really good thing. So there's other features in here that you can use, like there's the auto tag document, set alternative text. You know, if it wasn't already done in Word, you can do it in here. It will allow you, you can click on it and see it's already showing up here. You can do the alt text in here as well. There's a setup assistant that's pretty good that will give you some, ideas and concepts for you as well. So you can click on that and it's going to run a report as well. But this is, like I said, it's already accessible. And then there's a reading order one that you can actually double check your reading order and make sure that it's correct. So it's telling me the reading order of which each of the things is going to be read, and it numbers them for you with 2. So you could do a manual check this way as well. I just always use the read aloud because then I know it's reading what it says on the screen, and that's what I want it to read. You can also check here. This is a little bit more complex. I only use this when I know it's not reading right, and that's not very often. That's only usually when I get a PDF that's sent to me that somebody's created, that they didn't do it in accessible format when it was a Word document. So I hope that makes sense.
It does, and that helps tremendously because I have also seen that thing with the boxes on the reading order and wasn't sure what to do about it. But to start out by checking the read aloud is such a great idea.
It saves so much time. And as long as you started off with an accessible Word document, your reading order is going to be fine. So that's the only time sometimes it might get a little more complex is if you have a table and you haven't labeled the table correctly. But
Yeah.
Word tells you how to do that. So if you're creating that table in Word, it's going to tell you that it's not reading right and it helps you fix it. It walks you through. And I did that on the presentation we did before to show
Yeah.
you how to change those headers to make sure that it reads in chronological order. As
Yeah.
long as you do that, I must say, like out of 100 forms that I look at, I maybe use that reading order once. because if people are
wonderful.
using the accessible, because we nag all the time, please use the accessibility tool in Word. So again, with Adobe, they use the WCAG standards, which is 2.1. Um, and that's the reason why it's a lot more sensitive than the Word is. And I put a link in the notes down the bottom there, but I've got at the end of the presentation, I have more links for you. So you guys can see all of that. And then I gave some screenshots of those tools so that you can look. This is what they look like. So you could double check. I just find having that visual context really does help figure things out.
Absolutely, yes.
So I wanted to make sure you guys had that. And my thing is play around with it. That's the best way to get to use um, Adobe, and you don't have to have the main Adobe on your computer. You can save any Word document as a PDF. That feature is built into your Word. So it makes it easier for you to do. And then this is all the tools, and it looks like a ton, but these are all resources. So one talks about color contrast. If you're not sure, there's one that's called Color Contrast Checker. You can run your document through that, and it's going to tell you whether or not the contrast is good and give you feedback for changes. These are all free. There's another one right here. So I have 1, 2 of those. There's also one for image description guidelines. So if you're doing the alternative tag for an image file within your document, it gives you tips on how to write good descriptions, because you don't have to write, this is an image of a girl. You can just put a girl standing holding a book while someone sits next to her with his hand in the air. You're just given a visual description of what is happening within that image. You don't have to put, this is an image of. So you just try to be as descriptive as you possibly can for the individual that's using that feature. And you got to remember too, you want to add color to your descriptions, because we may not necessarily be completely visually impaired, so they may have some vision, but we have a lot of students that also have visual tracking issues, and also students that like with ADHD or a reading disorder, which prevents them from reading it themselves, but listening to it is how they get that information. So understanding the colors is really important. If you're describing what the image is. One thing to do stay away from is like when you're doing your syllabi, is don't put everything in red must be done first, because if somebody's colorblind,
Yeah.
the screen reader is not going to say, and this font is in red and this font is in black. It doesn't do that. So we try to stay away from those kind of colors for them. Another thing you could put in there is just put, this is important. um, you know, do these first and list those things. You just got to think of ways around that, because that's sometimes one of the mistakes. Like I've heard a professor say, well, I had everything that they had to get done this week in red. And I'm like, my student's colorblind. Everything's gray to them, you know?
And I have also understood that highlighting things this is one of the things I learned from working with Tracy, that highlighting something makes it look black.
Yeah, it does. It's a big black square.
Yeah. And
That
so
doesn't work. Yeah.
we definitely try to discourage highlighting.
Yeah. The webaim.org is a free service where you can check your website for accessibility, and it gives you a full report afterwards, and it's free, which we always like.
Yeah.
And then if you want to learn more about WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, there's a link for that in there as well. Because I just think it's better to understand. And then I put a couple of links in from Adobe, from their website. They have some really good guides, and especially explaining the requirements under Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act, which is about accessibility of documents. Most people don't realize that that exists, but it is a law in the state in the country. It's a federal law to make sure that we're providing accessible materials to all. And there's a really good YouTube video on how to check accessibility in Adobe. I tried to find something that was kind of fun and it wasn't Adobe because I think I like seeing it from an everyday person doing it. So it's a really good, oh my God, my emails are crazy coming in. And then the other thing I put on here is SAS resources. So we have a lot of resources on our website as
Yes.
well that you have access to.
Yeah, thank you. Wait, I've found myself going in there often and suggesting it to others too.
We have a lot of training videos and guides, like how to use the accessibility checker in Word, how to use dictate, how to use read aloud. We have it all in there. We did it for our students, but we found that our faculty like it as well. Yeah, and if you guys want to email me your questions, go right ahead.
Okay,
I-
we do have a question. PDF flyers and such, the things that come through that we want to share have much more design work done. What is the best way to make those accessible?
So that's a very good question, and it's a thorn in my side because I understand they want to make the flyers attractive and pretty, but most of the times they're not accessible because of the way that they're created. We can kind of make them accessible. What we tell departments to do, like within the Division of Student Affairs, we tell them if you're going to send out the flyer, take all of the written information that is important to that particular event and put it in writing within the email so that, whatever information is in the flyer that's not accessible, put it in the email body to the students or to the faculty and staff because we just find they use a lot of different tools in there and it's really hard and time consuming to make it accessible. I mean, they have to use the tool that I showed you about the reading order. They have to use that. And it can take a little bit more time to do that because of the design. And they hate it when we mess with the design, we move things
Yeah.
over. But the one biggest thing I can tell for a lot of people is the color contrast is a big thing on those flyers as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks to everyone for joining us today.